Welcome to the Philip Wiley Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Philip Wiley.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philip Wiley Show. I'm very excited to be joined by my friends Michael and Sam from Hou.Sec.Con, the best cybersecurity conference in Texas and one of the longest running conferences. So I really want to get them on because some of the things I see with conferences that's really kind of discouraging is I see some conferences that don't allow students. There's a lot of people they exclude from it, and those are opportunities for students to possibly get some internships, get some leads. It's a good way for hiring managers to find interns. So it's a great opportunity. And when I see those kind of things, it really disappoints me, but it really makes me happy that there are conferences like Hou.Sec.Con. And I see that you guys added a couple more additional conferences, and we'll get into that. But it's great to see what you all are doing. And so how long have you been hosting the Hou.Sec.Con conference?
We started in 2010 was the first year. So I ran a user group, and Sam joined me a lot with that user group back. It was a group called the National Information Security Group, which I don't even think exists anymore, but they had some chapters all over the country. There was one in Dallas for a while as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I used to go to NASIG, and that's how I found out about Dallas Hackers Association, because the month after I went to the first NASIG meeting, I met Wirefall that was starting up Dallas Hackers, and he told me about it. So that's kind of how I got plugged into the rest of the cybersecurity community here. Yeah.
And Michelle ran that NASIG group for a while up there. Yes. I went up there and spoke a couple of times of that. So yeah, we were doing that. I was doing that user group back when I was an SE for a cybersecurity, like reseller integrator type company, and just wanted to get the community going in Houston. There just really wasn't anything, and Sam knows this. We had a bunch of people working, we still do, in the community here. Just didn't have a community like meetings other than like ISSA and InfraGard and ISACA, which are fine. It was the same people that had been in that in a while, and it didn't feel like there was some stuff for some people who hadn't been in the industry for a really, really long time. So started that user group, did that. I think, if I remember correctly, I was the second most successful chapter outside of the home chapter that they had. And I was like, well, I've been wanting to do a conference. So we kind of, under the auspices for the first couple of years of NASIG, we ran as Hou.Sec.Con, but with NASIG attached to it. And then after the third year in 2013, we split off from that and did our independent thing. Sam was part of all that, but I think that's really when Sam got really involved, I think was that third year, if I remember correctly, but he was always part of the other part of it too. There was another guy we had by the name of David Nestor that was helping us with the website. And we were, I don't know what, Sam, we topped out at 200 people in the second year, maybe 300 the third. It was small, right? I mean, it was almost a B-Sides. In fact, we almost rebranded as a B-Sides Houston at one point, and just decided
kept kind of pushing that just because of my work with B-Sides in the early years of at Black Hat and at RSA. Did some of those, and that's really I got the bug for it, right? And anyway, and the structure looked right, but we had our issues with NASIG, et cetera, and it made a lot more sense to keep our own vibe and culture, because the one thing that Michael and I are very firmly aligned on is the objective, and the objective is to grow the community and support the community, and and when if you have your own brand, you can do what you want, and that's really what it was focused on. So.
Yeah. And I got the bug for running conferences when there was another, speaking of ISACA and InfraGard. I can't remember if InfraGard was in this or it was ISACA and ISSA, but the three chapters in Houston, I think Dallas and others kind of got together and formed for a little while this conference called TRISC, which was the Texas Regional Infrastructure Security Conference. I can't speak today. Texas Regional Infrastructure Security Conference. And I wanted to get involved in helping plan that out. And it didn't last very long. They had some missteps to their admission. I talked to somebody about it the other day. And it just didn't last very long, but I got the bug of running conferences when I was able to did a lot of the sponsor stuff for that one, got a lot of sponsors in there. So that was a lot of fun. And we just said we needed something, and the B-sides and stuff were popping up, but you had Shmoo.Con here and there, you had RSA, you had Black Hat, but there weren't as many regional conferences back then. So that's why we decided to kick it off.
But you look at things like Shmoo.Con and DerbyCon and others. I mean, there were inspirations too for us to look at and say, hey, we kind of want to do that kind of thing, right? And get ideas from those, right? So we still want to provide the right content and the good structure of a organized community, but we also want it to be a community event. We want people to show up and feel like, they're part of the family we are. And I always say we're only the only ones looking out for us is each other in this business. And so this builds that community, and the Houston community has a very strong community. It's huge. When we were doing it, when I was on the board of InfraGard, we grew that to about 4,700 members, and that's just the folks that joined. So you think they're outside of that, there's more practitioners. So that was also kind of a running joke, because we constantly complain to Michael why we don't have 4,000 people coming to our conference. But, at the end of the day, there's a lot of reasons for that. But at the end of the day, InfraGard had built a really good community in more recent years. This wasn't when we started. That it was still kind of, InfraGard was there, but it wasn't what it is today, or even 4 years ago for that matter. But that was kind of the thing. Like, there was an opening for doing something that we knew we could make sure it happened, and we were willing to do it. And, we've had a lot of great support from the community in terms of volunteers and people stepping out, maybe not all for all time, but some people even just stepping in for a couple of years to help with certain things. And it's been a really good experience. And really the cool thing is getting all the stories from people, like the connections they've made, hearing about students finding jobs out of college, hearing that were there volunteering, hearing about other people that found opportunities or, learn new things. I mean, it's just so cool to be able to be part of that, vehicle to connect people and help them be successful. I mean, at the end of the conference, I'm sure Michael will agree, we're exhausted, but we're also flying a little high, right? Saying, okay, we're ready for next year. Before you know it, within a few days, we're already talking, going, hey, we got to do this next year. We got to do this, got to do that, and so, it never really stops.
Very cool.
But about a month out, we always like, why are we doing this again? And then at last they were like, that was awesome.
Yeah. So before we get further along, so why don't we have you guys introduce yourself and kind of share your origin stories. So Michael, for the listeners, has been on my podcast previously, but wanted to get them on together to discuss Hou.Sec.Con. So Sam, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and share your background?
Sure. So I am a engineer turned dark side to sales. So the job I've been doing for the past 20 some odd years has been in account management. And my origin though is in mechanical engineering, and I did several stints in different industries. And I say this because I'm going to come full circle with this story. When I grew up in Switzerland, came over to the States, started the sales gig there. But a few years into it, got into cyber. And then once, I was with one of my big oil and gas customers, and I had a couple of aha moments within the 12-month period. And that was incidents that were happening inside of their operational environments, and the lack of preparedness of security operations to address them. And so, when I dug into it and I started seeing all these devices I used to work with, I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Wait a minute. Why aren't you protecting this stuff? Why aren't you doing this? And so for the past almost 15 years or so, I've been doing mostly just industrial environments. So ICS, control systems and things like that, and focus on that part of the business. So, but I'm tagged with that sales gig thing, although I still get technical when I can and enjoy those conversations. But yeah,
very cool.
That's my story.
So, Yeah, thanks for sharing, Michael.
I'll start by saying Sam's the least salesy sales guy that I know. That's how we met, is he was a sales guy before he got into OT, and I was a security manager, and we hit it off immediately. We've been friends ever
For the
since.
record, he didn't buy anything, so
No.
I must have really been the worst sales guy
Never
ever.
did. No, it's because we didn't have a budget. I just like kicking tires. So
I bought him a few lunches, things like that. So
yeah. Yeah, I've been on your show before, Phil, but I mean, for the sake of this, I think this is a different show, right? The other one that I was on. So origin story, when I was 3 years old, no, I won't go back that far. I was pretty much the only kid in my high school that had a computer because I was born and raised in Mississippi. But I've known since then that I wanted to be in some form of computing. But after I got out of the Army back in '92, I got a job in at a little local Houston area computer build, just a bench tech building computers, and then started doing networking and did local area networking. Then saw my first big Catalyst 5000 series switch and was like, oh, I want to do bigger networking. I want to do wide area networking. And then in that job, saw my first firewall, just throwing packets, Linux firewall, throwing packets across the screen. I was like, oh, I want to do that. That looks cool. And I think it's like a lot of people, we end up getting this gig and moving into something we don't necessarily expect that's what we're going to do. I think Sam expressed that same thing with him. He saw a need of something and focused on it. And it's the same way with me. So it was probably my first full-time security gig was back in 1999 to 2000s, where I really started focusing on security, and got my CISSP back in 2002. So I was a 5-digit CISSP, which, I've known 2 digits and 3 digits and 4 digits, but I still have a claim to fame of a 5-digit CISSP, and just kept sticking with it. I moved out of the practitioner role, to Sam's point, but I didn't move into pure sales role. I moved into a technical pre-sales role and did that for several years. I've done technical marketing in several different companies as well. Then now I moved into a CTO role at my last gig at Set Solutions, and then we got acquired by a company called Trace3, and I'm advisory CISO. So I've just kind of been all over the place, done security leadership, done pre-sales, done deep technical stuff, been all over the place with it. And then Hou.Sec.Con just came kind of organically as well, as we saw a need. So
I guess you're mentioning it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'd be remiss to mention, because it's important for both of us, like Michael has his support from his employer. I have the support exclusively from my employer. I work for Dragos, and, that's a big part of it. Like and I won't go to another job ever if there's ever the, requirement that I won't have enough time to do this. Right. This is a hard stop. This is what I do on the side, and it means I got to take a little bit of time off here and there, but it's super important also that, I'm super thankful that my employers and Trace3 for that matter, and Dragos have both just allowed us to do this. Right. And supported it like through resources at it. They've been fantastic. So
I had an opportunity to move to a pretty nice, very high profile job several years ago. And they were like, you can't, because they run their own, I won't say who it is, but they run their own conferences. And they were like, you can't have Hou.Sec.Con and do this. I was like, well, I guess I can't do that. I'm doing Hou.Sec.Con. So I had people look at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, dude, this is my passion. This is what I keep. Even you call it a side gig, but it does not feel like a side gig. So I get it, but it doesn't feel like it.
So how is working on the consulting and vendor side kind of helped you with Hou.Sec.Con to make it a better conference?
I'd say for me, and Sam's probably got some of the same answers, it helped initially because I had connections with all of these different vendors. So I could go to them and go, look, I'm going to kick this off, and do you want to sponsor it? And we got 10 sponsors that first year, and it was just because of the context. So that in the beginning, just very, not strategically, very tactically helped tremendously. I think strategically across the board, it's knowing the context and knowing how to talk to vendor sponsors and knowing how to talk to, well, and let me back up. Tactically, it also helped because I was always seeing customers. So I could talk to the customers about Hou.Sec.Con, and then they would go sign up because we didn't have any kind of a marketing channel right then. I mean, that was Twitter. When did Twitter even become? I don't even remember when it became a thing. It was like really hard to get the word out. There weren't all of these different really cool tools to get the marketing and stuff out. So you had to do it all by word of mouth, and there weren't as many cool tools. Let's just put it that way. So then strategically, it's just being able to talk to the vendors and being able to talk to the attendees and talk to the speakers. And Sam says he's in the sales side, but I mean, he doesn't come across that way. So when they talk to us and us knowing what they do, we can have real discussions with them and show them what we're trying to do with Hou.Sec.Con and how we're trying to build a community. And we don't have to make anything up. We've been doing this same thing for a long time. There are literally people who run cybersecurity conferences who don't know anything about cybersecurity. They've just said, I'm going to do a series of conferences because this is a cool area. And that's fine if they're successful and they get good content. I don't care. But I think part of our success has been that we, excuse the expression, walk the walk and talk the talk, right? We know what the day-to-day is like. That's how I see it. I don't know what Sam's thoughts are.
No, I mean, very similar to that. And I think, the sponsor stuff and everything, most of them have been very, very supportive of that. When we put guidelines and restrictions in place, have been very supportive to understand what the underlying mission is that we're trying to accomplish here. And it's been successful for most anyway. I mean, we constantly sell out on sponsor slots every year. And well in advance. And so that's great. That's fantastic. And, that shows the support. But, professionally, I mean, obviously there's certain amount of exposure that comes with that. And, I think people know us as kind of being, especially around the Houston area, know us as being the Hou.Sec.Con guys and appreciate that. I mean, the way I look at the conference though, is Michael and I will stand on stage and launch it, but this is a machine on its own, right? We just fuel it and the community owns it. And it's great to see that. So, at some point there are going to be two other people sitting up here doing this and, cause Michael and I aren't going to do this out of wheelchairs or whatever, when we're in the old folks home.
I don't know. Maybe
seeing our Uber orders to Chick-fil-A. Right. So, but at the end of the day, like that's the whole point, right? Is we grow and we support and, across whether they're attendees or whether they're sponsors, speakers, amazing speakers that come and talk and share information. I mean, we're just grateful for that to be a thing. Right. And I'm pretty confident that this will continue to grow and it'll continue to be, something that somebody else takes the reins of at some point in time. Not in the next few years, though. We're still good.
Yeah, you guys got a long time before you get that phase.
Yeah.
Man, one of the things I've been impressed with is, you see a lot of these conferences, especially ones that have multiple conferences throughout the country, and they seem so vendor heavy. It's like a vendor pitch. It's not really something to learn from. And I really like the way you guys really have talks more geared towards, people learning something opposed to, here, we're trying to sell this tool.
Well, that is a constant issue that we've got Hawkeyes on, right? So when we do submittals, we vet those very, very seriously, right? And even when we have some sponsored slots, some sponsorships come with a talk that you can do, and we give them guidelines, right, to show, because at the end of the day, even if they come in and do if they don't know and they don't have the guidelines and they come into a demo, they're going to fall flat on their face. No one's going to like it. And by the way, it's also going to hurt the conference. But typically when they take the guidelines, they're very well received. They do well. And so it's a matter of managing that. Like you can't just sign speakers on, and just in the sense of, like those conferences you mentioned, Phil, are very much, they're for profits. First of all, like that's their goal. Like they're there to turn a profit and fuel it. I get it. That's okay. To Farnum's point, that's good for them, but that also tends to create a, you lean very heavy towards the people that are paying that. And that's in a lot of cases, the sponsors, because usually the tickets don't cost very much to get there. And in fact, fun fact, the reason we charge ticket prices is to make sure people show up. That was the whole concept. We used to be free, and people would get tickets and then they wouldn't show. And we're like, well, wait a minute, there are people that want to get in and couldn't. So we started charging a nominal fee, and that's gradually grown a little bit just because we do have to balance a little bit and make sure we have room for everybody. But I think there's a lot of different elements to those conferences. And in some cases you don't have a choice, and it's at least you have that. If you're in some, town that isn't, the top 4 in the US, and you get a conference like this that's there and can give you something, at least there's that. Right. And so that's a good thing, if I can say anything positive about it. But yeah, I mean, they're just different models. And, I think we'd be more comparative to a, like a DerbyCon or ShmooCon or things like that, right? In that sense, because we're focused on the attendees.
And I do like to give Dave Kennedy crap, because we actually started a year before DerbyCon, even though they don't have it anymore. I do like to mess with him about that. It's like, actually, you started.
You can arm wrestle him next time you see him. You can arm wrestle him.
Yeah, no, I'll stay away from that one. No, I agree with saying. I mean, it's really keeping that. I mean, again, we do have some of those vendors that come and speak, and as soon as an experiment for us way early on, I think it was our 3rd year, we did our first. We only did two paid sponsored slots. And we told them, like, look, we're not going to bill these as sponsored slots. We're going to put these within the regular agenda. But what you've got to, I mean, we thought about it way in the beginning before we ever did it. We said, you can't go and show off just a demo. If you do that, nobody's going to show up. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened. We had one vendor that followed our advice. They did a real talk. They had a full room. They came out of that room just glowing. They were like, man, I never expected a sponsor talk to have that. I was like, well, you followed our example. The other one, they put it out on the agenda. They put the whole thing. This is going to be a demo of such and such tool. They had 3 people in the room, and they were mad. And I was like, well, we told you not to do that. And now they've sponsored since then multiple times and never done that again. So, we all learned a lesson from that. But we've always tried to integrate our sponsors into our agenda as this is not, we want you to give good content, and we're going to show this to our attendees as content. If you go up there and do this vendor presentation, to Sam's point, it's going to make us look bad. It's going to make you look bad. We're going to get bad feedback. People are going to come out of there thinking we're turning into a vendor conference. And don't get me wrong, we love vendors. Sam's one. I've worked for them. We've got to have them to sponsor Hou.Sec.Con, because on the ticket prices, I mean, we literally lose money on the ticket sales itself, because we don't want to make that a barrier for anybody to come in. We just don't. We don't want to have, I mean, we saw a new conference pop up here in Houston. It wasn't completely cyber focused. It was the first year, and they were charging $3,500 per ticket. And we're like, what? I don't even know if they actually held the conference. It was like, we don't want to do that. We don't want us to be and we give student discounts as well. Like, we will charge them very low rates, and a lot of times the school will pay for it. We're just trying to keep people in here and make it a community thing. That being said, I mean, it's called Hou.Sec.Con. Yes, we are a community conference, but we're also getting people. I mean, last year we had people from the UK coming over. We get people all over the United States. Our speakers are definitely coming from all over the United States and even international. So we're seeing ourselves organically grow into more. I mean, we're a community con, but into a national entity. Like, we're getting attention nationally, which I absolutely love. I think it's fantastic, because that gives us a chance to hook even more, connect even more people up, and not just the Houston community, which is fantastic. So
scary too, because we each year, every other year or so, we'll outgrow the venue, and we outgrew our last venue. It was the biggest hotel that we could find. We're done. We have to move into the George R. Brown Convention Center for the first time, and you walk those floors the first time, you go like, holy crap, this is big.
There is no other venue after that. There's nothing. I mean,
so now there's plenty of space to grow there, but I mean, I don't see us ever becoming the size of like a Black Hat or RSA ever, right? But there's plenty of room to grow there and do more stuff and have more fun, and so it's a good thing. It's just it's new, every single time we do it. There's always something else that we've got to keep our eye on.
Yeah. So how's the conference grown? So what numbers were you up to make you decide to move to a conference center?
We were close to 1,400 last year. So to put it in context, the first year we had 120 people. We were in the local Microsoft offices. Didn't have to pay any venue fees or anything like that. So it was actually really, really cheap. I think I catered in Jason's Deli or something, for the food that day. We steadily grew, and Sam and I would joke and go, or not even joke. We were serious. Like, let's top out at 300. Let's top out at 500. Let's do whatever. And we just had a bunch of people just kept wanting to come in. And to Sam's point earlier, he's like, let's not stop. Like we've got a ton of people in Houston. We can grow this thing massively just from the Houston presence if we can get the word out, which we've done successfully pretty much. Even though it still surprises me. I was at an event the other day and I met 2 local security guys, and they've been in this Houston for 15 years and had never heard of Hou.Sec.Con. I was like,
Still
is
happens.
that my problem? I don't understand. Yeah. It's really interesting, and I don't want to sound arrogant about it, but we've been here a long time. So yeah, then it steadily grew every year. Last year we hit almost 1,400 people. And this year expectations of probably about 2,000 folks.
Wow. And
again, we can't, we would have to take up multiple floors if we were going to stay at where we were before at the hotel. We just couldn't. Yeah. It would have got really weird and hard logistically. And the GRB, George R. Brown, if you know Houston, it's got room for 50,000 plus people in there. So we could do some crazy stuff. I don't know if we get there though. That's scary to me.
Got some room to grow.
Yeah, we do.
So speaking along lines of expansion, you've added a couple other conferences this year. If you wouldn't mind telling us about those.
Yeah. Sam, you want to start with OT.SEC.CON?
Yeah. So I'll start with OT.SEC.CON. So OT.SEC.CON, OT.SEC.CON is one that we have a track around industrial cyber in Hou.Sec.CON. It's got more and more popular. And being in Houston and with all the oil and gas and everything else here, right, it makes a lot of sense, a lot of sense to have something specific. And the conference that we're here that we're addressing, and again, they were kind of leaning towards what you were referring to earlier, Philip. They were more, nationwide, go around, charge high prices, that kind of stuff. So I'm like, we need to do something here for the ICS community. And so we did that. That was early in the spring. Mm-hmm. And with that, we had 200 attendees. Is that right, Michael? Was that I think
it was just over 200. Yeah, just over 200.
Over 200. Yeah. Vetted the attendance. This is a little different because we want to make sure attendees are from industry in the space, are tangent to those systems, because we didn't want to dilute the networking opportunity for folks. And it turned out really well. We got all kinds of great feedback. So we're going to grow that, and we're going to try to double it next year. As soon as we get the dates figured out, we're going to do that. Yeah. Right. And so, yeah. And, that's kind of been my baby, if you will, just because of the space I come from. And then we had the EXEC.SEC.CON, which is where Michael's really been heading up.
Yeah. So we, along those same lines, a couple of years ago, we started as what we call a CXO track. CISOs, anybody that wants to go. We weren't curating the attendance at the track itself within Hou.Sec.CON. Anybody who was interested in that, but basically those higher level strategy, everything else, risk conversations. We started that, I think it was 3 years ago. Had a couple of local folks, Mark and Kyle, heading that up and just kind of helping us run that. And we decided to do the same thing we did with OT.SEC.CON. We decided to split that out as its own conference. And to be clear, both of these are still going to be tracks within Hou.Sec.CON. Yeah. We're not taking that out. We just wanted to. So essentially, we're having the conference to the OT.SEC.CON and EXEC.SEC.CON twice a year, if you look at it that way. Yeah, and we split that up. We had, obviously a smaller type of a base that you're going to get in for something like that. So I think we had something around 60 to 65 pure just people who were there for the conference, CISOs, directors, CIOs, that kind of stuff. Then for the rest of the attendees, I think we topped out at, I want to say it was just over 100. So very, very focused crowd, really good curated. Again, it was curated attendance, curated speakers. We wanted to make sure they had their networking time. It went really, really well, got glowing reviews from that. We did it in a high scale, nice place called the Hotel Zaza, if you're familiar with that here in Houston, the Museum District. So yeah, we're going to do that again next year. And I think we're going to put OT.SEC.CON and EXEC.SEC.CON a little closer together so we can focus more on Hou.Sec.Con for the rest of the year. So those will probably be both in the springtime framework time frame next year. So, but yeah, they were a lot of fun too. A lot of fun to put together.
That's great. A nice thing about the OT conference is the fact that there's not like a ton of those around. I mean, there's only two others I can even think of, SANS, and then the one that they do in Florida.
Oh, S4. Yeah. And they're a little different too, right? And S4 is a great conference and I go every year too. I mean, but S4 is much more future leaning, like what's next, it's much deeper in the weeds. And ours is more about like fundamentals and getting people to understand, getting up to speed on this stuff. Cause we're still growing that community too. Like, I don't want to throw people to the deep end of the pool when they're still getting their feet wet on, just how some of these SCADA systems work in general. Right. And getting into it or teaching these IT folks what OT is about and things. And so it's a different role. Right. So, but that being said, we're also in Houston. This is the energy capital of the world. There are these systems everywhere, right? I mean, there's no better place to do it. And so, yeah, Sans ICS is another great one that's out there that my boss is part of. My boss's boss's boss at this point. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, it is. So, I mean, there are a handful out there, but I mentioned before, there are a couple out there that are just more focused on the revenue aspect of it, and that's okay. But I think we can do better with OT.SEC.CON in a lot of those ways and addressing community needs.
And at least it's nice too for folks in the Houston area that want to go to an OT conference that they have one that doesn't require expensive airfare to get there. And so,
yeah, Miami Beach, which is in Miami Beach this year, but that's a very expensive place to be. So it's hard to justify that. I mean, here's the choice. Like, you can go to RSA or to Black Hat. Usually folks have one budget to do one conference, and especially over the past several years, those budgets have not gotten better. They've gotten worse. So if I can stay in my own backyard and I can still get the time off from work to go do content, go look at stuff, then we've got some options here, right? So not just for OT.SEC.CON, but for Hou.Sec.CON as well. I mean, this year we're up to, I think, 90 sessions, 90 talks.
It's 10 tracks and
10 tracks over 2 days. And every year we say, we're not going to do that. We're stop. We have enough. It's because it's a lot of work to get all those speakers. And then every year we get more and more great submittals, and we're like, holy crap, I think we need to add this. And then all of a sudden here we are, but there's plenty to be done here. Not everybody can afford to go to the bigger conferences. And there's there's plenty of that good stuff right here in our own backyard. And we hope to keep folks, not just from Houston, but around Texas. And, those who want to come from out of state, you're very welcome too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the nice thing too, is some people are intimidated by the huge conferences. Although you're running a good sized conference, it's not going to be overwhelming like an RSA or a Black Hat.
No, I mean, it seems a weird thing to say, but like, when I go to RSA, I go to Black Hat, and I'll be at Black Hat. I didn't go to RSA for the first time in years. And love everything about those conferences from the perspective of the content, everything else. And I get to see a lot of friends across the country and everything else. But I mean, just venue size alone is massively intimidating. And I mean, the George R. Brown, while it's big, we're not taking up 90% of it. Right. And you don't have to like find your floor and everything else. I mean, it's a compact still conference. We are spreading it out, but just tactically from that perspective, it's less intimidating. And then I just think we've built in this year even more like lounge space and like really cool coffee bars and stuff for people to just be able to relax. We've got a village that's built in now that is going to have a lot of cool stuff for people, and we're expanding that. I mean, we've got a DEF CON goon here, goes by Dead, used to be DJ Dead, he just goes by Dead. He runs all the music and stuff in the DEF CON and in the villages, and he's right here in Houston. He comes and helps us out. So we've got a lot of those same folks. We got actually 2 or 3 goons from DEF CON that live here that help us out every year. So yeah, it's a really cool community in Houston, and people just don't think about it that. And that's Sam and I is like, we're trying to get the word out. Like, Houston has a very thriving information cybersecurity community, and this conference is kind of the pinnacle of that. If I don't want to sound too arrogant, but I mean, it's where everybody likes to come and hang out and have a good time every year. So
yeah, and also worth discussing too, your Hou.Sec.Con user group meetings that you host each month.
Yeah. So yeah, you came and spoke at the last one, and I appreciate that. So kind of going back to our roots a little bit, like what I talked about when we did the stuff with NASIG. We've actually got several little grassroots user groups here, like Houston Area Hackers Anonymous, and we've got the CISO from Waste Management, Jared, has put together the Cyber Peeps, and so we've got a kind of a thriving, cool little community. We fall somewhere between those two. Like, HaHa is highly technical, very, deep discussions. Jarek's put together really cool networking and happy hour, and a lot of people go to that. We're trying to cut that down the middle and have that networking and happy hour and stuff like that combined with discussion and having people like yourself come out and speak and give some, put some real knowledge out there. And we don't make it tremendously heavy on either, right? You can, if you want to just show up for the happy hour, you could, but I think you're going to be missing out on a lot. But you were there last month, or this last one. The discussion topics, we have everybody, when they register, submit a possible discussion topic if they want to. And it's almost like the talks. I get 7 or 8 submission topics, and I've got to choose and only do like 3. So if you saw, I combined some of them last time just to try to get them all in the same discussion. And it's a very lively crowd. We have a really good time. We do it every month, and we have 40 or 50 people show up in downtown Houston. If you know any big city, nobody likes to go downtown, or most of the time they don't. And they come down, show up. We have a good time. It's in the evenings. So yeah, we have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, it's good. One of the things I like too is the way you the discussion topics. I like that. A lot of your meetups, you go in, like Dallas Hackers Association has a fire talk set up, so people are doing 10-minute talks. Our local DEF CON 2 and 4 group, one presentation. North Texas ISSA has, typically panels, but there's really no discussion topics, which I thought was great. That way people can be more involved, and also the happy hour aspect to provide some networking after the fact. So I think it's a really good combination of what you got going there.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun. We're going to keep that, and that one's puts more demands on us, right? Because we've got to do it every month, and we have sponsors for it, but that's really light. They've literally got 5 minutes to talk about their stuff, and then we give CPEs out for all of it and everything else. So we have a good time.
Yeah, I'm sure most people won't complain to listen to something for 5 minutes to get some free drinks and free dinner.
No. Yeah, we did get good food too. We had really good Chinese food last time. That was really good. I shouldn't have ate some of that stuff.
Same here, but it was good.
Glad I didn't make it. Jeez.
You missed out on some good food. And in half the time we have too much food. So a lot of our attendees end up taking a bunch of food home. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Which is great. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and it was good to see the support from your local WESIS chapter too, them being involved.
Yep. Yeah, they're a partner of ours, like straight, they're there every month. They'll if they're not there, they're an official partner, and we have, they can't make it every single month, but they come most of the time. So I was really happy. Annie Jemshed is a local. I think she still leads that chapter here locally, but she's fantastic. She's been a volunteer at Hou.Sec.Con and helped us out as well in the past, and she does a really good job with that chapter. So excited to have them.
And we're big on supporting any of these, community groups. We have, we actually give tables in the sponsor hall to some of these organizations, right, to help them grow their membership. At the end of the day, everyone's got a spot somewhere. And, so it's important to keep making sure that the people know that they're available. InfraGard's there, ISSA's been there, WESIS, of course. And there have been others that have shown up and had booths that we gave them booths, just to make sure people knew that they were there. We do a job board too. Like, we usually have a job board up in the conference so that people can say, hey, I'm looking for somebody, or you can post, that you're looking. In the past, we've had those wristbands so you could easily tell if somebody was looking for a job or somebody was hiring. I don't know if we're going to do that again this year, but and then there's other stuff that we're doing this year that'll be new. So again, each year we grow, but again, it's all about making sure that we get the community to interact with each other and build the community stronger than it was before the conference, right?
Very good. Love what you guys are doing. So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there any closing remarks you have?
I say, Phil, just thanks for having us on. Everybody who, again, if you're looking for, it doesn't even have to be local. I mean, again, we have a lot of Texas folks, a lot of Houston folks, obviously, but we're seeing more and more people come out. Houston's not expensive to get to, not expensive to stay in. If you want something in that, towards the beginning of the school year and you want to come out and come to the conference and just meet a really cool group of folks, just come out. It's not expensive. It's really not. And we're going to keep it that way. We're again, at the risk of sounding arrogant, Sam and I, again, don't make it about us. We make it about the community, but we really enjoy the heck out of this and want more people to come out and show up. So,
which is why we don't do it in the middle of summer, just for the record, right? You've seen we do not do these in summer. There's a good reason for that. Yeah. And on my side, I echo everything Michael just said, but also, Phil, I mean, I appreciate you. You're constantly out sharing your knowledge with folks. And that's amazing. Thank you for that. I mean, it's exactly the kind of stuff that we love to see and support and give a sounding board to, right, for those that want to do that. And so whether the other point there is, if you're looking to start speaking, or it's something that you're new to and you're worried about, come talk to us. We'd love to have you, right? I mean, this is an opportunity for everybody to grow their skill set, whether it's speaking or cyber skills or whatever else. Just join us and be part of the fam.
Yeah.
And to plug you on your own show, Phil, I'm sorry, but to plug you on your own show, you are coming to speak and you're going to do a book signing at Hou.Sec.Con this year. So I'm really excited to have you. I think you've spoke for the last 3 or 4 years, if not more.
Yeah. So, since 2019.
Yeah.
And I think
you got a little bit of an origin story. Like you were one of your first workshops, right?
It was interesting because you were probably one of the first conferences that accepted my Pentester Blueprint talk that wasn't a B-Sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I like that you guys had the thought that there needs to be these entry-level talks to help people trying to break an industry, which is important because you don't always see conferences offering that type of content. B-Sides you do, but not always traditional, the commercial style or conferences as you run.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad we were there for your origin story is part of our origin story. And I love that. I love that we all came together like that. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Really love what you guys are doing and glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Phil. We really, really appreciate you having us on.
Thanks. Look forward to seeing you guys sometime soon.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to The Philip Wiley Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Philip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Philip Wiley. Until next time.